It's Monday, which I guess is Scream Day. Monday Scream Day, you like that? Came up with that myself. All these days, they all gotta have a name now. In any case, reviewing the Scream movies on Monday, it seems like a good idea. So let's let the saga of the Halloween Movie Review Extravaganza continue. Scream 2. That's right, contacts are back, which means my true form is revealed. No werewolf hands, though, because all werewolf hands look like complete ass in terms of costume. I mean, my werewolf hands aren't impressive, so I have these human hands hiding my true form. Enjoy the eyeballs, though. They hurt like hell. So Scream 2 is the second film in the Scream saga. It came out a mere year after Scream 1. And I'm gonna be completely honest with you, when I first saw Scream, my friends and I remember we stood outside. We were those kids. We couldn't get a ticket. We were too young, so we stood outside and coaxed some person. We gave him money and said, hey, can you just say you're our uncle? So he bought us the tickets. Thanks, man. His name was Tim. I remember these things. Thank you, Tim. Anyhow, we were those kids, saw Scream 2, and not gonna lie, I was disappointed by Scream 2. I just saw it as a case of a sequel that's not as good as the first movie. It disappointed me. But given time, I've grown to appreciate Scream 2 more. It's still a sequel that's not as good as the first movie, but you're comparing it to the original Scream. The original Scream was a game changer for the slasher flick. Quintessential, fundamental, important 90s slasher flick, the original Scream. So we're gonna talk about the things I enjoyed about Scream 2, things that disappointed me about Scream 2, and things that I grew to actually appreciate and enjoy over time about Scream 2. In fact, this is going to be a spoiler review, so spoiler alert right here. In terms of talking about the things that disappointed me when I saw it, and the things I learned to appreciate, I'm going to talk about who the killers are in Scream 2. So Scream 2 takes place on college campus. That's right, it's Scream Goes to College, which a college campus is a ripe playground for a slasher killer. Not the first movie to do it, not by a long shot, but still makes sense for the sequel to Scream. And Scream 2 sets itself up to continue the playful nature of Scream 1. You know, who's the killer, who's doing it. And Scream 2 is when we, for the first time, see the film Stab. It's the movie within the movie that's movie allegory for slasher movies. Yeah, Wes Craven got really meta in the 90s. It started with Wes Craven's New Nightmare and just carried us through Scream 3. The funny thing about that is when you're seeing Stab, you see clips and scenes, and you know the scenes that they are, but they are different. They're inaccurate. Which again, take that to heart for any movie that's based off of a true story. That's just how that goes. But also, Tori Spelling plays Sidney Prescott, which is just hilarious. In Scream 1, they were talking about, oh, Sid, if they make a movie, who's gonna play you? And she was like, with my luck, they'd pick Tori Spelling. And Tori Spelling plays her in Stab, the movie within the movie. Also, Tori Spelling did audition for the role of Sidney Prescott in the original Scream, which actually makes that line funnier because if Tori Spelling played Sidney in Scream 1 and that line was still in it, again, Wes Craven loves his meta. But one of the things I liked about Scream 2, again, Neve Campbell as Sidney Prescott. Sidney Prescott is truly a character who grows. She runs to a point with that first phone call, like the actual first real Scream ghost-faced killer phone call she gets in the movie. Her answer is, then show your face, you fucking coward, hangs up the phone. Granted, he was right there and the chase ensues, but still, great answer. You can just tell she's had enough of it. You see that at the very beginning when someone prank calls her. It's like, oh, what's your favorite scary movie? And she's like, who is this? Why don't you tell me? And she has caller ID. She's like, all right, here's who it is. And goes like, oh shit, and he hangs up. I feel like a lot of other slasher movies would have the lead star be like, oh, it's happening, it's starting again. It would like get in her head. I've just always loved the fact that Sidney Prescott just doesn't have time for this shit. She's a character who actually does grow through the shit that's thrown at her. And if we're looking at the playful Scream, who is it, who's doing it, who are the suspects thing, this movie does a good job at keeping you guessing. It's fun to watch the characters here. Whether it be Mickey, played by a younger Timothy Olyphant, he's always recording things, and he's this film student, he's just a complete film fanatic. Is he filming things because he's the killer, or is he filming things because, you know, he's a film student? Liev Schreiber plays Cotton Weary, which you saw a news clip of him in the first Scream. Now, he has been released, his name has been cleared, but not fully cleared. People still treat him like, wait a minute, you're the guy who killed the, yeah. But you feel the desperation. He's so desperate to clear his name that he kind of comes across as obnoxious, which again, you're like, oh, suspect. He even tells Gail Weather, like, Gail, I did my part. And I'm like, does that mean you killed people? Sid has a new boyfriend. We saw how that went down in the first Scream. Just the suspect list is a good suspect list. And the guessing game that Scream 2 throws at you to keep you on your toes does a good job with that. Ghostface is still a klutz though. I know I mentioned that in my other review and people are like, has it crossed your mind that it's hard to see out of the mask? Well, yeah, probably. I don't see a discernible difference between when I'm like, oh, that's Billy Loomis and that's Stu, and they're both clods. But you gotta admit that is funny. Other killers are like, I'm very efficient. Dead. Ghostface is over here like, fear me, Red. Oh, fuck. It's just funny to me. He's so clumsy. But if he wasn't clumsy, you wouldn't have a movie because he'd just be so easy at killing people. Like Sidney Prescott would have been taken out in 2 seconds in Scream 1. And I will say, this movie has great scenes, great scenarios, great tension. Like that scene with Ghostface in the car where Sidney and her friend, they're in the car. Ghostface is in the car. Ghostface is knocked out and they have to crawl over him to get out. That's a great scene of tension. Granted, why weren't they just like, all right, well, while we're crawling out, here's his knife. I enjoy the fact that it's like, maybe he's unconscious, maybe he's not, and we gotta crawl over this guy to get out of here. Great moment of tension, also David Warner as the drama teacher. How can it be that David Warner is so good that he can steal the movie, at least for this scene he's in, and all he's really doing is giving a teacher to student pep talk? He is in fact so good, he was on my suspect list too. I suspect everybody in these movies. I was like, drama teacher, maybe he wants to make the ultimate dramatic production. Possible. Point is, whether he's the voice of Ra's al Ghul, Professor Jordan Perry from Secret of the Ooze, whether he is the Cardassian torturing Picard, the two-parter Chain of Commands classic. He's just so good, and I just love the scene he's in. I don't believe you. I don't. He's awesome. Then the film ends in the drama stage, which, again, I always found funny. It's just so perfectly timed and perfectly planned. You know, Sydney goes there because she can hear something going on there. They turned up all the volume on the production. Sydney could have just as easily been like, it sounds like drama's going on. I need to get the fuck out of here, though. What if she didn't show up there? What if she didn't follow the sound of the stage production, which probably had that sound going on many nights before? It just cracks me up visioning Mrs. Loomis and Mickey just sitting there in their little ghost face outfits like I totally thought she was gonna come here because, I don't know. Don't listen to me then. Which brings me to the main thing, more or less, when I watched Scream 2 for the first time, I was like, oh, that's disappointing, is the killer reveal. It started from the fact that I felt like this movie was just doing more of the same from Scream 1. I mean, it's really woven into the killer's motivation, as you see. People are being killed because they have the same names as some of the victims in Scream 1. So I just felt like the killer's motivation is to copy the first movie, and this movie more or less feels like, well, Scream 1 crushed it, so we'll just do a Scream 2. In Randy and Mickey's film class, they even talk about how sequels are by definition inferior films. There's the whole debate of whether or not movies lead to violence, which is funny. That's still going on today. And that was a big thing back in the 90s. I remember I thought that argument was dead, and then Joker came out in theaters and I was like, oh, we're still having that conversation? We're still having that Scream 2 argument? And then nothing happened, but you know, I imagine in 20 more years we'll have that argument again. So upon all that, the Ghostface killers are revealed to be Mickey and Mrs. Loomis. Or as I really saw them upon reveal, the Stu wannabe, or the Randy Stu hybrid, and just the weird, obnoxious reporter lady pestering Gale Weathers like a fangirl. She's the killer? I was just really disappointed by it. Yes, I know it's a total throwback to Mrs. Voorhees. I got that at the time too. But I just didn't appreciate it at the time. It's like, you can have a throwback, but I don't know, I just wanted to be more impressed with the killers. But given time, over the years, I've actually come to appreciate this killer duo a lot more. See, individually, yeah, sure, maybe you'd be disappointed, but together, they do work, and the movie completely spells it out for you as to what was going on, why it was going on. Apparently I didn't care at the time, but I actually really do appreciate it. First of all, I should have picked Mickey out of the crowd from the get-go. It's like they were like, oh, we want Randy to be the killer. Because a movie fanatic would be a logical killer choice in a slasher movie about slasher movies. But you can't do my boy Randy dirty like that until you kill him in a van. Subjectively, I hated that Randy died. But first of all, it's actually really fun to go back and rewatch the movie and see things that Mickey does and says. There's a lot of misdirection with Mickey at first glance, and then when you rewatch the movie, you're like, no, it's just Mickey being manipulative. The movie kind of wears it on its sleeves, like, no, Mickey's the killer, and we're gonna kind of make it obvious. Even the trailer for Scream 2 that has Randy and Dewey going back and forth as to who the suspects are, he's like, Mickey, the freaky Tarantino film student. But if he's a suspect, so am I, so let's move on. Or they call the killer out in the trailer. Because sometimes the best place to hide is right out in front. David Warner, Ninja Turtles 2, Secret of the Ooze, he's incredible. And Mrs. Loomis wants revenge for the death of her son. I get it. I was like, why would Mrs. Loomis dress up like Ghostface? But really, if it was just Mrs. Loomis, she wouldn't have dressed up like Ghostface. The whole Ghostface shtick gimmick thing was Mickey. So it's kind of awesome to think about. She talks to Sydney how finding an active serial killer is actually a very rare thing, so Mickey was a rare find. You get the feeling like Mickey was already a serial killer. He had already killed people. Don't know who those victims are, but the point is he did. So you get the feeling she was like, hey, I need your help to get into college and we're gonna kill this girl, and he was probably like, fine. Oh shit, Sidney Prescott? Like the whole movie fanatic. Oh, dude, I gotta make a sequel. So Mrs. Loomis probably rolled with it like, yeah, okay, sure, all right, let's dress up like Ghostface and shit. You just get the feeling that in order to get Mickey's help, Mickey was like, we gotta do the Ghostface thing. So Mrs. Loomis rolled with it and went along with it. So the lack of originality came from the mind of some movie fanatic that Mrs. Loomis found to be her serial killer. And you kind of get at a point she was like, dude, we're going after Sydney now. This shit is, let's just go. You have enough victims to play your whole, like, I'm gonna blame the movies thing. And he was probably like, yeah, you're right. So after that, the deaths that happened stopped being because of their names, and it was just collateral damage. And Mickey, with his whole movie motivation, is a total out for Mrs. Loomis, which she tries to use. Like, all right, Mickey, blam, okay. No one even knows about me. So the dynamic between Mrs. Loomis and Mickey, I actually grew to appreciate. It does feel kind of sloppy, but it's within context that it does feel sloppy. This lady made a deal with a serial killer so she could kill Sidney Prescott, and this guy was just, he was just some movie freaked mind who wanted to do a sequel, and the whole thing just feels shoddy. As much as I kind of saw that for Scream 2's execution, it's actually within the context of execution among the two killer characters. I grew to actually enjoy that about this movie. All that is to say, in the end, Scream 2 started out as this sequel that wasn't as good as the first movie for me. But in hindsight, when you look back, and maybe it's because, I mean, there are 4 Scream movies now. If you look back, Scream 2 is actually where they could have ended it. They could have just ended it here and been like, yeah, Scream and Scream 2, that's the whole saga. It actually would have been a pretty airtight saga. That's one of the many reasons Scream 2 has gotten better over time with me. In the end, I'll say Scream 2. It's a really good time. No alcohol required. All right, well, before we get to next Monday, where I inevitably talk about Scream 3, we got some more horror movie reviews coming this week in the Horror Movie Review Extravaganza. I might not do one tomorrow on Tuesday. I might do Monday, Wednesday, Friday, because there are a couple of new movie releases coming this weekend. Regardless, that might be how this week goes down, but again, keep checking back. More reviews coming, more horror, more screams, more scares. All right, so Scream 2, have you seen it? What did you think about it? Did it disappoint you? Does it still disappoint you? Have you grown to appreciate it? Has it gotten better over time, worse over time? What's your favorite scary movie? Whatever it is, whatever you think, comment below, let me know. And as always, if you like what you've seen here and you want to see more, click right here to see more.